are now tuned in to the Lineman Lounge, the world's thickest sports podcast, with your hosts, Mike and Evo.
Como están, bitches? This is the Lineman Lounge. I'm Mike. That's Evo. It's fucking snowing a lot here in Ohio, but we are back. We are ready. We got more playoff football going on today. Divisional round kicks off on Saturday. Couple pretty good fucking games too, man. I need something better to watch other than what we watched last weekend. The games weren't great. A lot of blowouts. My team was on the wrong fucking end of one. But hopefully we'll see a little bit better playoff football this weekend. But my man, Evo, let me bring you in. How's the weekend going? How was the week? I talked to you a little earlier in the week. It was, beautiful. 70 degrees down there in Arizona?
Yeah, I mean, it's still chilly here during the evenings, I guess. You know, we get down into the high 30s, low 40s and stuff like that. But yeah, we've been pretty consistently, at least this last week, mid 60s up to the low 70s here during the daytime. So it's pretty nice out, especially for January. But I guess we do have a significant cold snap coming, I think, for the majority of the country in February. So talking about power outages and all that shit. But
yeah.
we'll see.
There's kind of happening right now, right? I believe sweeping a little bit across the country. Quite a bit of cold. We had a buddy who was unable to make a podcast this week because power and all the things that were going on down there in Alabama. So it's cold all over the fucking country. It has snowed a shitload here. They're getting like 8 to 12 inches of snow. Graydon has made a shitload of money over the last about 3 days. Going out shoveling. We advertised for him on the Facebook group for our neighborhood, and people are doing it. He's doing good work, so he's getting even more word of mouth. So yeah. At least he's not sitting in the house. That's what I would probably be doing at his age, sitting in the house playing video games, especially on a snow day.
Yeah, hey, good for him. It's a good workout. And honestly, growing up Minnesota, shoveling all the time, and then we got a snow blower and stuff like that later on. But like, I disliked doing it, and even doing it for other people was like, I was kind of like, I just don't want to do this. Like, hey, you're a kid, you generally don't want to. Having gone back to places where I've needed to shovel and stuff like that, it is kind of like the whole mowing the lawn thing for me now, where it's like, I kind of like it. It's fucking weird. Getting old is fucking messed up.
I would prefer to shovel snow over mow the grass. I fucking hate mowing the grass. I am not a heat person. I'm almost certain I've been a heat casualty at some point. I can actually point to a time in college I lost like 10 pounds in one practice. My freshman year of college football, was out, needed IVs, ambulance came. It was a whole ordeal. So I don't fuck around with the hot nearly as much. So Arizona was tough. Like, we'd be out there at 100 degrees. My ass has got to be in the shade as much as possible. So send me out and shovel snow anytime.
I only like to be in the heat on my terms. So like for me, if I'm mowing my lawn, it is Arizona. It is a relatively small lawn. I'm out there usually with a beer and no shirt. And that's like, I'm getting my sweat on and getting some sun, drinking a beer, enjoying some tunes, but it's on my terms. I'm doing it, Right. It's like, I hate heat too, man. It's a bigger dude problem. Like,
it's a bigger dude problem.
When you start to sweat from, really working at a shit, you've got a little bit of extra heft to you. So when you start putting in ambient temperatures being higher, it's rough. So I absolutely prefer the cold over the heat because I can only get so naked, but I can always put extra layers on. But I mean, I am having a decent time with some heat now because I got a sauna for out in the garage. So I get my sweat on, probably get an hour in over a week, and a little meditative, decompress, get all the toxins out, and just get to be naked. It's nice.
Yeah. So I was thinking about going cold plunge, more in line with what our temperatures are out here, and probably help with some of the recovery post surgery and all of that. A little cold plunge early in the morning, wake my ass up.
So cold plunge and heat treatments like a sauna are both really good for you. It's just when you do them and how you do them. Like, don't do the cold plunge right after a workout because it will be good for your muscles, but it isn't good for muscle growth. It actually creates some atrophy. And whereas, that sauna, like cold plunge is fantastic for the morning, waking up and stuff like that. I will say this, and this is completely off topic for fucking, but I mean, look, I hate it, but getting into the shower in the morning, ice cold, terrible. But yeah, it wakes you up. But honestly, afterwards, I feel like $1,000,000. I feel awake for a couple hours, like it got my brain switched on, and I feel warm afterwards. Like after being in that cold, everything feels warm. So it's like it's real nice. But there's a lot of stuff that we could be doing to help our bodies feel more efficient.
Yeah, so I'm going to use that as an opportunity to transition because the time that I needed to take a cold shower was fucking last week because I was not feeling good. I was feeling sick watching my team go out there and just get absolutely fucking curb stomped. 45-14. It was not very close in the first half. It got way worse in the fucking second half. Like, I understand that we went in, at the half. What was the score at half? Down fucking 10 points. So you're not great, but you're not out of this thing. You're not dead just yet. But my goodness, couple of really unfortunate turnovers, back-to-back offensive plays from Joe Flacco, pick sixes, really buried the team. And then from there, you're just hopefully trying to get out of there without being embarrassed or getting guys hurt that you plan to retain for the next year. But outside of my hurt feelings, I'm assuming you watched all of the games last week. What were
not
you
all
seeing?
of them, not all in their entirety, because while I love playoff football and everything, we only really had like one game that was really competitive, and that was the Lions-Rams. The rest of them were kind of blowouts, not all the way what you expected. I don't know how we did for our show picks. I don't feel like it was super great, but I know that like for my bracket, I got 2 wrong, and it was probably 2 that a lot of people got wrong. A lot of people picked the Browns to win that game, and a lot of people picked the Cowboys to beat the Packers. I think the other one that was kind of wishy-washy for a lot of people was that Eagles-Buccaneers game, which I thankfully was able to get right there. But it was wild card round. It's not exactly what you expect or hope from.
It wasn't
from a playoff matchup. Like I don't want to just be like, oh, this was a terrible weekend of wild card games, because like overall I was excited to see how it was playing out, and that it was playing out how I was hoping for the most part. But yeah, it wasn't very competitive for the games other than that Lions-Rams game. So that made it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, it was. Some of these games were tough to watch. The Browns one especially. Did you watch the Browns game?
Yes.
Okay, so I want to see what if you got the same things that I got, why we were struggling. I know a lot of people have talked about what happened, but for you watching the game, observer of the game, but also know about the game, what did you see? Where were the Browns getting beat?
Specifically, your guys' strong suit is your defense and the amount of pressure that you can get. And Myles Garrett seemed like he wasn't in that game. Like the game plan to defend against Myles Garrett's attacks was fantastic by the Texans. Like he just was not effective. Laramie Tunsil is a very good tackle, but I mean, you're talking about Myles Garrett, one of like the top defensive linemen in the league. And I could have not heard his name like all game type thing for what I know. On the flip side, Joke was having himself a fantastic, probably I think his best game ever. It feels like
that's a standout game there from Joke for sure.
It was fantastic for him, but in some ways, good defenses will do this to offenses. Like if you have, we'll say for the Vikings, a Justin Jefferson, you know that he's the best, and you're able to mitigate him, you might see another bright spot on the team. TJ Hawkinson might start going off, but it's okay. Like that's what the defense is intentionally trying to do. They're trying to limit the certain guy, and they're okay with allowing, a little bit of bend in another area. And that might have been what was happening with that Texans offense was they're limiting a Myles Garrett from doing what he's doing. It allowed a guy like Joke to have a fantastic day, but at the end of the day, Joke is a linebacker. There's only so many plays that he's
An
really going to be
off-ball
involved.
linebacker, like they're one of the most devalued positions in all of football. Now,
Yeah.
Joke is a stud, and in my opinion, it proved that he is or on his way to being an All-Pro if he's not already at least second team All-Pro. I think he just got picked up for the Pro Bowl. But
Either way, like he had a fantastic day, but the more impactful guys on your team, like a Myles Garrett, who is going to be just that extreme disruptor, wasn't much of a factor. And for what it's worth, CJ Stroud, he, hasn't had very many turnovers this year. He's been very efficient with the football. He's not necessarily, I wouldn't call him a slow processor, but his snap to throw time is like bottom half of the league because he is taking his time processing back there, which normally means that defensive linemen have time to get home and you have to find a way to protect them a little bit better. And the Texans just did a really good job of that. To me, because the Texans offense was able to get ahead, get that rhythm, and your guys' offense obviously was, I don't want to call it the Flacco fall off here, but it's something that I brought up, where Flacco, while he has been putting up great touchdown numbers, great yardage numbers, he has had the interceptions because he is being a little bit more cavalier with the ball.
Right.
And this was, out of 6 games, like the one where it really was, a pain for your team. And once the Texans offense starts getting further ahead, you guys are forced into less of we're going to be a run the ball type of team and let Joe be able to kind of sling around here and there. It became much more of like, hey, we have to pass. And once you're forced in those passing situations, it is going to be tough for you guys who, again, like, not that you can't pass the ball. Obviously with Flacco, it showed that you guys have a legitimate passing attack. It's just, if you're having to lean on that more than being a little bit more run heavy, like 60-40 or something, it's tough. It's tough when you're put in that hole because it's going to allow the defense to go out there and really headhunt and find their way to back-to-back pick sixes and things like that.
Right. Yeah. So, and you brought up a great point, with the Joke thing. So if you're not familiar, like, there are some guys that will wreck a game. Myles Garrett is one of those guys. So teams will try to shade to block a Myles Garrett, to block a TJ Watt, a Micah Parsons, right? So protections are always going to slide in that direction. And especially if you make them non-existent, that offense is specifically going out there and trying and develop the game plan to take this player out of it, right? So Joke is obviously going to eat. So if you're committing that much attention to one guy, you're going to leave gaps. You're going to leave holes that a guy like a Joke can explode through, and he's going to have a great day, but he's not going to make enough huge impactful plays like a Myles Garrett can, where we're not going to see, sacks, strip sacks. That is a massive killer of an entire drive. Yep. Where tackles for loss are great. They're big, but they're not as big as a sack is going to be.
I go back to the game where you guys played Indianapolis. This was back when, you were just in the thick of it with quarterback issues and whatnot. Yeah. And Chubb was out. And you guys won that game, I believe. And Myles Garrett was like the reason. I was like,
yep.
You guys won this game because of him. It was sacks, forced fumbles, things like that. Like,
jumped over the center and blocked the goddamn field goal.
Yeah, he was doing everything humanly possible to win that game. And that's the sort of impact that he can have. And then when it's taken away, it's almost like twofold. Like, the rest of the defense just does not seem as effective.
Yeah. Well, and the Texans did a great job in this game by utilizing our scheme against us. We're a team that does not necessarily blitz a ton, and when we do, it's always kind of behind a man coverage. Like, we're a man a ton. We will send packages, but we do a lot of stunting. And when we blitz and we're in man, what we have a really big problem with, and what we've seen all year, is that we can't keep up with motions, and misdirection absolutely fucking kills us. And the Texans utilize that to great perfection in this game. We were motioned out of sets that we liked into sets that they liked, getting specific guys on specific guys. Happened all day to Greg Newsome, who got ate alive by Nico Collins. Like that motion and getting into sets that you like, getting those matchups that you want, is how you can attack this Jim Schwartz defense, and that's what happened. We didn't make adjustments quick enough because there were some adjustments, but they didn't happen fast enough. And this is a learning process for that Browns team. This is the first year for a lot of these guys. They just fired like 3 offensive coaches, so there's going to be more turnover there. We're on the right track, I think. The inability to generate a lot of offense in that game and really develop a running back to help replace Nick Chubb, because you're not going to replace Nick Chubb, but the inability to, develop a guy that can come in and be half of what Nick Chubb was. That never happened, so I think that's what happened to Stump. I love Stump, one of the better running back coaches in the league, I think, but the loss of Nick Chubb and not having a guy behind him that could step up is really what got that, got him his job lost, which sucks, but I think we're on the right track. This one fucking sucked. It was hard to watch. I watched the whole damn thing, and it hurt the entire time.
Yeah, that's the difficult part here for me, is that obviously, I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for those Browns, but this Texans team is like one of my favorite stories of the year. I really I love the coach. I love the quarterback. I love Nico Collins. I love the way that the team has been kind of rebirthed like a phoenix from being just like the dog shit team in the NFL year in and year out. And it really feels like, sorry to say it, but the Deshaun Watson crap, like getting rid of that was like a rebirth for him. And so like, I'm excited for that Texans team. I felt, terrible that the Browns, lost in that fashion, but like, I'm excited to see what the Texans are going to be able to do going forward. So because my team has been out of this playoff hunt for a little bit, and this isn't a off season show today, but like, what are your thoughts about the Browns off season getting better? Like what sort of cap situation are you looking at? Do you have a bunch of key free agents that you need to re-sign? And because for me, I don't know your cap situation, or if you guys are potentially going to lose a bunch of guys left or yet. But to me, like the biggest thing for you guys is, can you get a offensive system where Deshaun Watson looks 75% of what he used to be? And can you add another good receiver to really take, pressure off of just like an Amari Cooper?
Right. So cap situation right now is very interesting for this team because the way it projects is we are $14 million over the cap. However, that will not be the case because there are already restructures that are planned. I believe we're going to be looking at about $44 million in cap space because the Deshaun Watson contract, that's going to keep getting kicked down the road. We're kicking that can until we can't fucking kick it anymore.
Yeah. Now, is that $44 million effective or $44 million cap after the restructures, and then you have to account for the top 51 and the picks, the draft picks?
So I don't know if the picks are included and if that's top 51 average or not.
Okay.
But that's the last number that I was tracking. I could be a little bit off on the number.
Okay.
But there are some key free agents. Zadarius Smith is one of them. I'm not sure if we're going to re-sign or not re-sign. He was good at times. He was very similar to what we saw with the Jadeveon Clowney.
And this is the thing that like we talked about Zadarius when he was with the Vikings and stuff like that. I was like, if we had an opportunity to retain him, I'm not against it. But with his age and the product, like for me, he was a good pass rusher, but that was about it. Like his run defense was so for us, and I can find that in other guys for less money. And we kind of saw that this year with my Vikings team, where we had other guys step up that were more pass rush specialists that were getting paid, next to nothing compared to what Zadarius was getting. So for me, and from my perspective, unless you're getting Zadarius at a very cheap contract, it's an easy one to walk away from.
Yeah, well, and we have Okoronkwo on this roster who I think is going to continue to grow in his role. So I'm not sure if we would need to bring him back, but obviously, like some big names, Shelby Harris, I would like to have Shelby back. Shelby has been great. Jakeem Grant, we haven't even really seen because he's had injuries. Joe Flacco, Sione Takitaki, I like in terms of a run stuffing off the ball linebacker. like you're not going to pay this guy very much anyways. They're pretty much a dime a dozen now. I like a guy that's been in the system. You could probably re-sign him. Kareem Hunt, love the story, but Kareem is getting older. Like, that running back room is going to have a big shakeup. If we get Nick Chubb back, there'll be that. But there's going to be some fresh blood in that running back room. Everybody in that room had an entire year, an opportunity to prove that they could be a guy still or be a guy for their first time, and it never happened. So I would not be surprised to see some running back shakeup, at least at the number 3 spot. Because I don't see us retaining Kareem Hunt after they, signed him off the couch.
Yeah.
Maurice Hurst, I think, is another guy, D tackle, that I love the rotation that we had up front. Keep him. Jordan Elliott, that's another guy up front that I would like to keep just because I like the rotation. But we're going to need probably another tight end to go opposite of Njoku. Amari Cooper, I do not believe. No, he is not a free agent this year. I would imagine that there might be an extension coming with some restructures of money for Amari Cooper because there's no reason that we'd want to get rid of him. We've got him for, I believe, one more year at $20 million. So there's going to be some different things that happen with this roster. Tight end, running back are things that I would expect to attack, as well as offensive line. We need some more fucking depth on the offensive line, obviously.
Okay. What are you guys looking at for draft picks? Obviously, you don't have your first round pick again this year. But
I think it's 2 is our highest pick this year.
I'm pretty sure you guys still have your second round pick, but beyond that, like total picks and things like that, you know how many that you guys are sitting with?
I actually think we're at like 7 or 8 because of our hires that have gone to other teams. Let me double check.
And with your guys' seeding and where you guys ended up exiting from the playoffs, that'll put you around. It would have been, first round pick, like 22 or something like that. Maybe between 20 and 23 or 25.
Yeah, so somewhere in that.
So you'll be looking around that pick in the second round.
So 50?
Yeah, somewhere right around there. What would be your hope then, without maybe having done a whole lot of research?
I have not.
What type of position would you look for?
At that spot, I'm looking for a receiver, a tight end, some sort of weapon, because I still think you can get a weapon at that spot, especially in this draft. I think there's a fucking lot of dudes that can go out there and make plays.
Yeah, so I've been 2-3 weeks now very heavy.
I know you're diving in because your season's fucking over, and I'm
tight end draft. This is not a great one. You have one guy in Brock Bowers who it's tough to even call him a tight end. In reality, he's
a Y, right?
A weird, like, he's his own position. Like, I can't compare him to anybody right now. Like, I can't look at the NFL and be like, oh, he's like a Kelsey or a Kittle or something like that. Or like, he's like what you expected Kyle Pitts to be when he came out, except better as a prospect, in my opinion. Like, the way the teams that are up in the top end of the first round aren't going to select him. I feel like his realistic range of when he's going to start getting looked at is around pick 5 with the Chargers, and the Chargers could take him. But he is 100% a top 5 player in this draft, potentially top 3 or 4. So, like, Brock Bowers is an insane talent. It's just a tight end tends to be a devalued position. That's going to drop him probably somewhere between pick 5 and pick 18, I would say. And then there's a sharp drop off after that for tight end. Wide receiver, fan-fucking-tastic draft. We're looking at a historic draft for receiver. Yeah. I'm talking in your top 100 players, so basically your first 3 rounds, you're looking at 25 to 33% of those players being wide receivers and all being able to be day one starters. Last year, we had a situation where you did not really have big body receivers coming out, especially high-end ones. You looked at like a Quentin Johnston was like the big body guy that was a first round talent, and obviously we saw how that turned out.
First round talent, yeah.
This year it's the opposite. It isn't the small guys, it's the big guys. We're talking 6 foot to 6'3", around 200 pounds, fast, good possession. Like there's the talent is insane at wide receiver this year. When I'm looking at mock drafts and stuff like that, I'm seeing guys in the third round that some teams could possibly be taking as high as late first, early second, just because there's so many of them. And like I'm seeing a lot of different. That's where I'm seeing a lot of different comparisons to current and former NFL players, where I'm like, oh, this guy seems exactly like an Alshon Jeffrey, or this guy seems like an AJ Brown that is going to get taken in the second or third round and is going to be that good. So for you guys, I'm saying if you're looking at, hey, our first pick is in the second round and wide receiver is absolutely a position in need, there will be other spots obviously available, when you're picking there, but wide receiver is probably going to be a fairly easy option, and probably a pick that you will see from, mock drafters for you quite a bit, just because adding another receiver that can easily step in to be a number 2, maybe a number 1, is going to be a fantastic option.
We might need him to be a number 1. 1 year with Amari, we might not re-sign Amari. It's very possible that we're not going to re-sign Amari. So
well, I feel like
a guy.
I feel like you guys will keep Amari at a minimum. Like
we're pretty fucking fickle over here with our wide receiver group, especially when you got to pay your quarterback $75 million in the next couple of years as we kick that fucking contract down the road.
I'll put it this way: I like Amari Cooper. I think that he is a number 1 in this league. Maybe not like a top 15 number 1 receiver. It depends on quarterback play a lot. We saw kind of what he could be at the max towards the end of the year.
I mean, 265 with Flacco is fucking impressive.
Yeah. That being said, I think that you can get a guy in the second round that will, by the end of next year, be outperforming Amari. Like, for sure. That's the type of talent in this draft at wide receiver that we're looking at. So
it makes me happy.
Yeah. It makes me think that as a Vikings fan, where I know that I've got JJ and I've got Addison and I've got Hawkinson, like we're set at our receivers if we really want to be. We need a third or something like that. And it's like, well, we could theoretically, I guess, move around a little bit and we don't have a third round pick this year, but like if we wanted to.
You need a quarterback.
Yeah.
That's what you got to be in position for.
Well, like we could like have the 3 deep of old, Randy Moss, Chris Carter, and Jake Reed type situation going on if we took one of these guys, where like you're not going to be able to know what the fuck to defend with basically 4 top end talents at receiving options out there, where it's like you could put Mason Rudolph back there and they're probably going to have an average day just because of all the options. Like I don't want to put a Mason Rudolph back there. Let me be extremely clear, but it's like a really good situation for if a rookie quarterback comes in, like the offensive line is being rated top half of the league. You've got a lot of receiving options. You've got a head coach that is a good developmental guy and kind of draws up some good schemes. You can see some pretty cool shit happen there if we got a receiver. I don't think we will because it's nowhere near one of our top needs. But like that's the thing with the draft is like you can draft for needs or you can draft BPA, and at some point, BPA has to win out. So it's an exciting draft for that.
I mean, in my opinion, BPA should always win out. Don't draft if you're in a position where you're drafting for need. You're already fucked.
True. This draft is also, obviously, I consider it a very good quarterback draft. I've soured some on some of the quarterbacks as far as being first round picks. I still think that we have this for sure will be a 3 quarterback for first round, probably a 4 quarterback first round. And 5 or 6 is the maximum, but that's if teams really start getting greedy because of the position.
Right.
Some of these guys definitely are like late first, early second round type of guys that are going to be in here. But it's that still is a very good top end quarterback draft. And then offensive tackle, very heavy offensive tackle draft with a fair amount of these guys that are listed as tackles are going to be really good guards in the NFL. But like through the first 2 rounds, I'd say that you have 10 to 15 guys that will be starting on the offensive line that are listed as tackles, but will play tackle or guard. Defensive end is pretty solid. We're looking at probably 10 guys within the first, 2 to 3 rounds that should be picked up there and be starters pretty quick. So, and then cornerback is a pretty solid cornerback draft too.
Yeah, so that's actually an excellent transition. Let's talk about a cornerback who did something that I wasn't sure that was even possible. Did you watch the Chiefs Dolphins game in its entirety?
Yes, but I mean, it was one of those where it started to become a little bit more passive.
A little bit more of a blowout, right? So I don't know if you saw, and the NFL posted the clip on Twitter. I'm not sure if it went out anywhere else, but L'Jarius Sneed jammed the absolute shit out of fucking Tyreek Hill. He put him on his ass. So I was watching the game, and it's like, okay, so maybe Buffalo, not Buffalo, Jesus Christ, maybe Miami still has a chance to come back and play a little bit in this game. And then I saw L'Jarius just absolutely sun Tyreek, and I was like, okay, well, this game is fucking over. Yeah. It's cold. It's slippery. Tyreek is not going to be able to use his speed as an exploit against L'Jarius Sneed. So, yeah, they had a tough game. I posted something on our Twitter page about him getting the shit jammed out of him. A day later, the NFL was also talking about it. So, yeah, I want to say I beat the NFL on that one. But, dude, it was crazy. It was not right there.
It was an interesting game overall because of, the conditions more than anything. I mean, you have some minor storylines of like Tyreek coming back, but realistically, it was those weather conditions. I don't know. Do you watch the New Heights podcast with the Kelsey brothers?
So I have not watched a full episode in a while, but I always catch their clips, like their shorts and stuff.
Yeah, and I did watch the most recent episode after this weekend. Which, by the way,
retiring. I have not watched yet.
If we really want to be as real about this as possible, the New Heights podcast is basically the Lineman Lounge podcast, except for Lineman Lounge has slightly better looking dudes. But we look a lot like them. Like I was watching it, and I was like, the way they talk and shit, like it's like we're the same sort of brand. Kelsey has not retired, by the way,
not officially.
And he made sure that was clear, and that he's like, a lot of things came out, and he's like, I haven't officially retired yet. He's like, if or when that happens, I haven't made any decisions. I think it would be unfair for me to do that right after a game. And he's like, but I'm going to do something with a little bit more decorum than just like let it get leaked out somehow that I'm retiring if that's going to happen. So everything is pointing towards that happening. And honestly, for Jason, like this is the time to get out because that Eagles team looks like it is fucking imploding. We haven't had any real news on Sirianni yet.
He could honestly fucking do the tush push. Like, that has got to be beating the shit out of him.
Yeah, well, and it seems like at least Vita Vea knows how to fucking stop it.
Yo, dude. Yeah. Well, Vita Vea is a large human fucking being.
He's husky.
He's a big boy.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's that listen, the Eagles went out tough. We're going to talk about that game in a minute, but yeah, good for Jason if he does wrap it up. He's a Hall of Famer. There shouldn't be any doubt that he's in the Hall of Fame. And I do want to say that one of the three has possibly hit in my my little prediction, my reckless speculation. So
yeah, well, so going back to this Chiefs Dolphins game, like it was all about the conditions, and it was an Isaiah Pacheco game. That's what we said. Like we're gonna see them leaning heavily on Isaiah Pacheco here, and he had himself a really good game. But listening to the New Heights podcast and stuff like that, I think they had like 3 or 4 players now that have been reported as having frostbite from the game.
They shouldn't have played. It was dangerous. Anybody who has ever been in frigid conditions like that knows that it was dangerous.
Yeah, Travis Kelce was talking about the ways that different players, like a lot of them were wearing like the scuba suits and stuff like that underneath, which is, I remember when I was playing, if I like in cold games, I still was sleeveless and stuff like that because it's kind of like the ego thing. But in general, when I'm wearing pads and stuff like that, anything else that I'm wearing, I want it to be like tight to my body, form fitting, because I don't want it to get in the way. I want to feel like slick and smooth so that I can get past the guy when I'm playing defense.
Right.
like, it baffles me when players wear chains, because that would just annoy the fuck out of me. Like anything bouncing around annoyed the fuck out of me while I was playing. So extra layers like that already starting to piss me off, probably. But he's talking about like some players, I guess, will wear like surgical gloves underneath their regular gloves to try to retain heat, which, Travis said he's tried it before, won't do it anymore because the sweat and creates a little bit of a slippery barrier in the glove. So it's like the glove moves a lot more in your hand than when you're trying to catch a ball. Which we saw
dude.
We saw him drop some balls there as well. Guys putting like the little hand warmers and stuff like that in their shoes to keep their feet warm, and then developing like insane blisters.
Yeah.
All sorts of shit like that. So like you'll see some secondary effects from this, but at the end of the day, it was, Miami they kind of had the same issues that they've had whenever they've been playing competent teams this year and away from home. And the weather did not help with that. Kansas City, their defense is pretty solid. The offense, they were able to just kind of rely on that run game. And that's what this game came down to. Like projecting this out going forward, I wouldn't say like Kansas City's like a powerhouse or anything like that in the AFC. It's just one team was kind of ready for this sort of game, in this sort of environment, and one team wasn't. I can tell you, Patrick Mahomes' helmet wasn't ready for that game.
Dude, if it's that cold that a helmet fucking breaks, it's too cold to be playing football.
Yeah. Joe Rockstar brings a good point here. No sense to reschedule Buffalo and not KC2. There's
the only reason it happened is the money. They didn't have any. They had to have enough games to cover enough coverage time, enough TV time, so they could move one game, but they couldn't move the other because of the money. So they had to move the one where it was literally a public outcry. They can't get to the stadium. People could get to the stadium in Kansas City. They were just going to fucking freeze to death.
Yeah,
sorry, I have to be cynical about it, but that's why that decision was made, I believe.
It was a health risk as far as driving conditions in Buffalo. Like they had blacked the roads. You weren't allowed to travel in Buffalo. Whereas in Kansas City, you could travel. It's just like, hey, it's, be outside at your own risk type thing, which I get to an extent. But the point that we are bringing up here is that the field conditions themselves were
dangerous,
very dangerous. They have the under the field heaters going, and honestly, that field looked really good from like a TV perspective. When I saw it, I was like, man, that thing is cleaned off really well. But there are certain places where those heaters weren't working as well as they should have been, where, Kelsey talked about, as soon as you step off of the actual field, you were walking on concrete. And there were parts of the field that felt like concrete. And being tackled and brought down on concrete is very unsafe.
Well, imagine you're running on a surface and all of a sudden you run on that surface and that surface no longer feels like it's the surface you were running on before. As a fucking, now non-athlete, that would fuck me up. If I am a highly trained athlete running at a high rate of speed, there's potential for a lot more fucking dangerous things to happen, damage to happen there. It was not safe.
The word is that the actual field, like the players didn't have a problem with their grip on the actual field itself because it was melted to an extent and those heaters were going. It was once you got, outside of the actual, inbounds lines and stuff like that, that things got pretty bad. That's where the danger is. And parts of one of the back of the end zones, I guess, wasn't as thought as it should have been. I've actually, they said in one of the old super cold games where they didn't, we're talking 60s, something like that. They didn't have the in-ground heating, and it was like this where it was concrete. They still played the game. All the players went out for pregame warm-ups, couldn't get any sort of traction because they were basically running on concrete, and everyone switched from wearing cleats to wearing running shoes because it was just like running on concrete. It wasn't that bad, but either way, this game to me ends up coming down to the Dolphins don't really have a good answer against, competent teams. They, if you want to say the fraud thing, you can. 11 wins is tough to call a team a fraud, but
they lost everybody on their defensive line, and that's where they lost the game. It was on the line of scrimmage. They lost because they got their asses run over, but 3/4 of their starting defensive line is out.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. The next game, though, that kind of happened, jumping over into Sunday, we had the Packers-Cowboys. The Packers were able to put up 48 on the Cowboys. And Cowboys scored 32 points, but 16 of those were kind of garbage time in the fourth quarter. And somehow McCarthy retains his fucking job, which,
Dude.
If you are an NFC East fan, that's great. I remember when the Packers were like floating the idea of firing McCarthy, and I was like, don't do it. Don't do it. And I had like 2 or 3 years of don't fire McCarthy. And then he's coming back and being happy. And that's got to be the way that the rest of the NFC East is feeling right now. They're like, holy fuck, they did it. They brought him back. What a bunch of idiots. Because that moon-faced bastard had every reason to be fired. And for Jerry to be like, you know what? Run it back. What the hell are you thinking? Especially when you've got some of the coaching options out there. Like, any of these, you could, any of the top options out there, a Belichick, a Harbaugh, a Vrabel, Slowick, Ben Johnson, any of these guys would be fantastic to bring in. And it's like, nah, we're just going to run it back with this fucking dipshit. And Dan Quinn, who had his fucking ass handed to him, Dan Quinn keeps on getting talked about as like a head coach potential for like
which is crazy,
Seattle and stuff
dude.
like that. The Packers game plan against him was so good. And I don't want to give credit to the Packers here. I think his game plan was just like, we're just going to beat the brakes off these guys, so we're not going to game plan anything. And the Packers were like, okay, we're going to put some moderate effort into this. Like they made the Packers look good. And I still don't think the Packers are good. I fucking hate this narrative. They're like, oh, Jordan Love's top 5 quarterback now. Look at this. They did this.
Yeah, I would say this is going to be
and
hard for you because you wanted both of these things to happen. You wanted the Packers to lose, but you also wanted to see McCarthy get bounced. And now the Packers win, and McCarthy keeps his fucking job, and it doesn't make any goddamn sense because the Packers should not have won, and McCarthy should have been at some point fired or on his way to a firing the way things have gone. But I think the narrative is starting to change on whose fucking fault all of this is. Is it Mike McCarthy's fault, or can Dak not make a big fucking play in a big game? That's the question. Is Dak that dude? Can Dak make a big play in a big game when he needs it? Because he makes a prophetic thing at the beginning of the year. Barstool even tried to call him out. I won't throw 10 picks this year. He does it. Freezing cold takes, has a nice little run with it. It's a cool storyline. And then he immediately goes out and throws fucking picks. Like, can he not perform in the clutch?
The pie chart of blame here is, threefold. You have Dan Quinn with a terribly schemed defense for this game. You have Dak Prescott, who is putting up relatively close to MVP numbers in the regular season, and then somehow again in the playoffs falters. And you have to really question, why does this happen every time? Is it really getting to him? And I'd like to think that he's a better quarterback than that, but I don't know what else to do with that narrative. And then Mike McCarthy is the head coach. He's in charge of both of those guys. So if we're talking percentage wise, it's 30% to Quinn, 30% to Dak, and 40% to McCarthy. He takes the biggest share of the blame because it is his team.
It's the head coach, yeah.
He is the head coach. He's the one in charge of that shit.
Yeah, so the game plan was terrible from the defense. Joe Rockstar, it's not all on Dak. I'm not saying that Dak is all to blame, but Dak is a big part of the blame. And is it more Dak than it is McCarthy? I think the biggest thing, and what Joe brought up, is the defense. They allowed, now not all of their fault, 48 points in this fucking game. Yeah. But they were put into bad spots a fucking couple times by this offense.
Yeah, look, to me, it's tough because the Packers' defense is very gettable. And the Cowboys' offense has shown to be really prolific at times. So you absolutely should have been able to put up a bunch of points against them. I mean, they put up 32, which is a lot of points against.
If you put up 32 points, you should win a football game.
Absolutely. The defense is solid, okay for the Cowboys.
They were lights out early in the year, especially at home.
The Packers' offense to me is overrated. I don't care what anyone fucking national media is saying about Jordan Love or any of that shit. They have struck some gold on some of their young wide receivers, not Christian Watson. On some of their guys, like Jaden Reed, they have Amari Toure and stuff like that. Some of these guys, they have found some really good later round wide receivers that are going to develop, and it's good for them being a young team. Those guys are going to be good going forward. I'm still out on Love. I don't think that's like, it was such a bad defensive scheme. The thing that I said before this was like, you look at the past several weeks of the regular season for the Packers.
They played dog shit.
They were playing
teams with
dog shit defenses, and it's making Love look a lot better. And then you come in here with a relatively competent defense, and that defense played absolute dog shit and made the Packers look decent. So, like, this is, I would say, you know, other than the fact that I hate McCarthy, a majority of this game plan is on that defense. Like, why this happened it is on that defense, a big part of it. But at the end of the day, like, Dak should have done better. It's going to be really interesting to see what goes forward with them, because I believe Dak has like one more year left on that deal, and he's owed like 40 something guaranteed, like a lot of guaranteed money. And so the question is, okay, do we move on from him after this next year, or do we extend him and spread out some of that cap hit? And I think that's the route that they're going to end up going.
After next year's they're out if they want it, or they'll have to re-up and then restructure. And
it's tough. It's kind of the Kirk Cousins situation where it's like playoffs haven't been good for you, but regular season can be very prolific. And it is so difficult to move on from a guy when they're putting up that sort of numbers.
Yeah, when you win, that's great. But if you don't win in the playoffs, it's really hard to keep your job, especially in this league. It's a results business.
Yeah. But I kind of expect that the Cowboys will extend Dak, spread out some of that cap hit in order to keep going forward. But we'll see. The big thing with this is, and we're going to talk about it this week, is the Packers move on to face the 49ers. The 49ers have traditionally dick slapped the Packers, especially in the playoffs. So, Joe Rockstar, you are watching. I will forever hate the 49ers if they do not do what they need to do today. I'm just putting that out there. I don't know if you need to call Shanahan or whoever you need to talk to, but I am going to have some very, very strong words that will have to be edited if they don't handle their fucking business.
You know who we should call? Is fucking Kyle Juszczyk's wife to make us some sick-ass jackets. Because she makes some dope shit. We skipped over the Taylor Swift thing earlier because there's no reason to separate the way people feel about Taylor Swift. But, dude, that Kyle Juszczyk's wife makes some really cool shit. She's been making stuff for other athletes, and also shout out to Kyle Juszczyk for fucking like absolutely, you know, pumping his wife up and sharing all this. Every time he had the chance, he was saying it shit was made by his wife. So yeah, she is, dude, it's fucking awesome. So shout out Kyle Juszczyk's wife for the super dope jackets. I don't want to know how much they cost though, because we probably cannot afford them.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, they're bespoke, and now that they're getting even more fucking coverage, like this is going to up the price some. Anyways, next game that happened on Sunday was the Rams-Lions. Again, this was the one competitive game, and look, it was actually a fun game. You have the Lions winning 24-23. I don't know what to say. Like, I was super stoked for the Lions at the end of that game, like their fan base and everything. They get another home game this week. Like, it's pretty fucking awesome. Seeing the GM, I didn't understand this, but the Lions GM, I believe it was 2003 or 2006, he was not in the NFL. He was working at Enterprise Car Rental.
What?
He worked his way into the league as he got on as like a PR guy, like a PR analyst or something like that in the NFL. And in that time, slowly worked his way up to the point of becoming the GM for the Lions, and is completely helped revitalize his team. And seeing his like emotional reactions of fucking cheering his team on as they're in the locker room and stuff like that is not like, oh, I'm doing businessman stuff. That is pure passion for his fucking team.
Yeah. Dude.
And Dan Campbell is pure passion for his fucking team and his players. Like, that's the sort of shit that gets at your heart. And you're like, fucking awesome. Like, I'm very happy.
Dan Campbell is human heroin. You fucking get a little Dan Campbell in your life, you will run through a fucking wall. Plain and simple. That's what that man is. Dan Campbell is the truth. I love Stefanski. I love what he did this year. But if there was a coach that I would trade Stefanski for, it would be Dan Campbell, even though his scheme would not work at all with the players that we currently have on this roster.
Everyone wants, that's the thing. Okay, so Dan Campbell was a average to above average tight end in the league. As a position coach and things like that, he was average. Like, I don't think this is Dan Campbell's offense. This is Dan Campbell
is a motivator of men. He
Absolutely.
is a leader of men. He is a fucking head coach. He is not a position coach. He doesn't call offense. He doesn't call defense. What he does is he puts together a plan. He motivates his fucking dudes, and they go out there and they execute. That's exactly what you want your head coach to be.
Yeah, he says, hey, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, this is your offense. This is your defense. You go out, you put together the best scheme for the guys that we have. This is my one thing. There will be heart, there will be emotion, and there will be fucking aggression. If it's fourth down, we're fucking going for it. Like, that is the type of team that I want. That's the sort of coach that he is. It's not like his scheme or anything like that. Everybody wants a Dan Campbell head coach. Everyone wants a Dan Campbell as their head coach because that is the sort of like vitriol and emotion that you want and motivation from a coach. Absolutely. So, like, kudos to that Lions team. Really good year for that Rams team. I think it showed that they have a bunch of young, good building blocks that they're going to be able to go off of going forwre.
Which makes you think McVay is not going to even come close to retiring now, right? Like,
yeah,
they've got enough pieces there that he can get a new quarterback. He'll find another, D tackle. He won't find another Aaron Donald. That's not going to happen. But you can find a guy who can maybe replace a little bit in Stafford.
Yeah, they do have the one rookie D tackle. I can't think of his name, who has quietly had like close to defensive rookie of the year type numbers. I believe he's had 9 sacks from the interior, like really, really good. And I expect Stafford to probably continue going there for at least a little bit. They do need to start looking towards the future of quarterback there. But right now, like a couple of those young pieces that they have on their team, they're going to be able to build with, and that's a good thing. I don't think McVay retires either. But either way, kudos to the Lions here. Excited to see what they do for the rest of this playoff. Monday, we have our game that was moved, the Steelers and the Bills. It's still was very snowy there. You're having the fans come in and shovel and whatnot.
Dude, they had no assigned seating because the snow could not be cleared from the seats. So it was fucking get in where you fit in.
Yeah. You have snowballs being thrown at
hell yeah
on the field, helping out the Bills a little bit there. And
that's cheating. Don't do that. Good job, Bills.
It was either that or dildos.
Good job, Bills Mafia.
What would you prefer?
The Steelers.
Would you prefer it to be snowballs or dildos? Like,
dude, I promise you, if I get hit in the face with a fucking dildo trying to catch a ball, I'm gonna be way more pissed off than if I get hit with a snowball mid catch.
Yeah,
like I get hit with a dick. Like I'm going into the stands. We're having Malice at the Palace Part 2 somewhere up in fucking Buffalo.
Yep. But for the Steelers, this was, hey, Mason Rudolph is your quarterback. It's the same narrative that this has been the year of like the backup quarterback. You're going to get 2 to 3, maybe 5 good games out of them. And then they're going to fall back into the mean or their norm or off the cliff where they belong. And that's why they're backup quarterbacks. And that's what happened with Mason Rudolph. Oh, he finally faces a competent team. And it is my time to be relegated back to dog shit land. Because he looked, like Mason Rudolph of a couple of years ago. And meanwhile, the Bills just continue to look good, keep on rolling. Josh Allen, he did not fake a slide, in my opinion, on that run.
Juke. You can look at it from multiple fucking angles.
He really put the team on his shoulders. Like, it was like the Bills were pulling ahead, obviously 14-0 there through the first, but then that Josh Allen run, I was kind of like, well, there is no coming back. He's fucking going now. That was a fantastic run. Bills are going to be a real strong team going forward here in the playoffs, which is like, this is one of the games that everyone, this divisional round, super hyper divisional weekend or whatever the fuck we want to call it. And that moves on to the Giga Championship weekend or whatever the fuck. But we are looking at good games this weekend, like ones that are set up to be really good. And this Bills Chiefs game in Buffalo is going to be real exciting. So happy for the Bills there. Definitely picked the Bills to win that one. Didn't see any possibility of the Steelers winning there. Steve Young, Tom Brady, Kurt Warner, Brock Purdy, all backups. Watch your mouth, Evo. Those, yeah, I'm not saying backups can't go in and be good. I'm saying that if a guy is a backup quarterback,
career backup,
they're established as a backup quarterback
somebody
in this
else.
Like, yeah, if they're established as a backup quarterback in this league, that's what they're going to do. It's not like a guy who happens to be second on the depth chart and then overtakes the spot, which for the most part is what happens.
Very rarely happens. Rarely happens in the NFL. When you are kind of labeled as a backup quarterback, that's your honey hole. You stay there for forever.
Usually, yeah. Or you can be a starter that gets relegated. Relegated
to a backup role.
Yeah. All right. Lastly, Eagles, Buccaneers, out in Tampa Bay, and the Bucs stomp on the Eagles 32-9.
Baker fucking balled.
Had himself Baker probably worked himself into a Geno Smith-esque contract. I think the Bucs roll with him going forward, and Geno got paid pretty darn well. And that's probably what Baker's looking at this offseason based on how he's, led this team. But
fucking 9-8 winning record. You win your division. You win a fucking wild card playoff game. Like, you can't ask for much more from a Baker Mayfield in his first year as a starting quarterback down there.
Yeah. And look, I think the Bucs are an okay average team. The Eagles lost this game. It wasn't that the Buccaneers necessarily beat them. I feel like it's more the Eagles lost this game. You saw turmoil on the sidelines where it's like guys are kind of like going against Jalen Hurts. You're seeing Goddard get in his fucking face. Sirianni,
this is off the heels of AJ Brown putting some things out on IG directly about his quarterback, and then removing all of the Eagles information from his IG as well. So
yeah. This team didn't have its mojo on offense for the latter half of the year, but that defense quit. You can't comment on the tackling because there was none, because they just didn't try. It was insane. I don't remember seeing this. The sort of play that you saw from the defensive players on that Eagles squad is reminiscent of a team that has been eliminated from playoff contention in the regular season, and they still have 3 weeks left to play. It is guys that are going out there who are starters that are like, the fuck is even the point of me doing this? I'm just going to be out here and earn my paycheck. We haven't even moved the backups in here yet to try to fight for a spot.
Listen,
this is just the starters.
We're not taking G reps. I'm taking a G rep. You do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah, it was insane. And to me, so the talk about Sirianni being fired, I don't think anything has officially been put out that Sirianni's coming back yet. But look,
there's going to start to be a conversation that he probably shouldn't come back.
There's heavy talks of that. If you have a team that is 10-1, they didn't get to 10-1 by luck. Something happened where that team fucking died in the middle of the season. And if you're not able to recover and get a couple wins during that time frame, the immediate question is, who's the major player that got injured? Don't have it. Then it goes to the head coach.
Yeah, what the fuck happened in the locker room?
The team.
Yeah, what happened at that point is when you're winning as well. When you are fucking winning, what happened that went wrong?
Yeah.
That they're done. Now, Joe Rockstar is still in here. Niners broke them. I mean, yeah, they got their asses beat. But that can't just be, okay, you lose a game, you get your ass beat. Now, I understand. I've never been anywhere near that level. But it fucking sucks. You pick yourself up, you move on to the next one. What happened that the team became fractured? Was it so bad? Were they telling coaches all week this game plan will not work and they refused to listen? It's more than just a loss.
Yeah. Look, so Sirianni, if you look back into his history, he hasn't really held very many positions on football teams where there's been a lot of success. Like, he spent a decent amount of time with the Chiefs, but this was the Chiefs before they're the Chiefs that they are right now. They got rid of him, and then all of a sudden they started to become better. Like, I do not think that coaching-wise he is a very good NFL coach. Not just talking head coach, but NFL caliber type coordinator play, things like that, positional. To me, he is in the position that Dan Campbell is in, where, hey, I am not the football guy. I'm not the X's and O's guy. I am the passionate motivator leader of this team. Except for he got this job where I believe he was probably unqualified for it. He was the Philly bro and had some solid coordinator play along with a roster that was in its prime as far as the players 2 years ago. All right. You have really good players on defense, decent players on offense, and then an up and coming guy in a quarterback who is being led by Shane Steichen, who was able to do a really good job with Jalen Hurts and developing him and fitting a scheme to him. When you have good coordinator play like that, you are going to lose those coordinators, right? So Steichen leaves, and Gannon, again, I'm still off on him, but like you had good players on the defense, so people are going to run with it. That's why he ended up going to the Cardinals, who looked like they were fucking a dumpster fire, and that's the only job he could get. Now you have Brian Johnson in there, not up to the task. And you have Ajiro Evero, or no, is Sean Desai as your defensive coordinator. Yeah. But he's basically being pushed into a corner.
He was relegated to a backup role
to allow Patricia to go in there, which makes no fucking sense.
Yeah.
Like, I like Sean Desai. I think that Sean Desai was put into a shit position, though, because you have those players that, again, 2 years ago were in their prime and have now aged themselves out. They have a lot of injuries. I still think the front seven for Philly can be pretty damn good, but that back end was terrible. And then
Darius Slay obviously had a very down year. He missed a couple games too, right?
Yeah.
With injury or no?
Yeah, he missed a bunch of games towards the end of the year, came back in this game. This was his first one back and got injured. Slay seems like he's kind of fallen off of a cliff. He
had a couple down years. There was a reason he got traded from the Lions. He had a down year. There was some issues with the management in Philly. Then he goes to, in Detroit. Then he goes to Philly. Has a resurgence. Makes the Lions look like they're fucking morons for a few years. And then, last year was great.
Last year he was the only person that successfully defended Justin Jefferson. Yeah. Like, he was still solid as of last year.
This year he took a step back.
Yep. Kind of fell off a cliff and then had the injury bug. But either way, you have good coordinators. They are going to leave. A good head coach is going to be able to continue developing coordinators underneath him and identifying those guys and bringing them up. And Sirianni wasn't able to do that. I think he just kind of went in with that bro machoism and was like, whatever, we're going to fucking do it because we're the Eagles and we're a good team. And like, they have a very talented roster, but bad coaches. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Good roster, bad coaches, even with a lackluster defense, the amount of talent that they had on offense, there's no reason why they shouldn't have been competitive in every game that they've been in.
Well, there is something that has happened inside that on that offensive side of the ball. There's a reason A.J. Brown is getting rid of all of the stuff from the Eagles, and there are screaming matches with the starting quarterback on the sideline. Like, that is a bad look. Now, what are they going to do? Who are they going to side with? Because they got to side with somebody. We have seen this play out in the past. We saw the coach and the front office side with a Russell Wilson up in Seattle, and it tore apart the Legion of Boom, and that team was never the same after that whole not giving it to Marshawn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a very similar situation that looks like this is what is brewing. That if they don't figure out a way to unfuck the hatred that's going on that side of the ball, they're going to destroy and fracture this team, and it'll take a while for them to build it back up. And because almost certainly they're going to be on the side of the quarterback.
I feel like the right move is to do that. Like I was kind of being a little bit shitty towards the Eagles last week when this was kind of brought up about how, like, the Eagles and Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie are known for moving on from head coaches too quick. You do it with Andy Reid, Chip Kelly, Doug Peterson, and now the next one could possibly be Sirianni. Except for, out of that group of names, Sirianni is the only one that I'm like, this guy really is not a good coach. Like, Chip Kelly wasn't great in the NFL, but like, he had a history in college of being pretty fucking successful, and maybe he just needed more time. I don't know. But to me, you move on from Sirianni and get a good head coach in there like a Vrabel, and this team, I think, immediately becomes competitive again because you bring in a good offensive coordinator, one that is, because Jalen Hurts can be a very good quarterback, but he needs the correct scheme. And I think we saw that when Steichen left, that scheme left. And Brian Johnson did not have the wherewithal to run a effective offense with Jalen Hurts. You bring in a decent offensive coordinator, and Vrabel and a decent defensive coordinator will be able to help turn around that defense as long as they start injecting some youth into it. They can be real good again in a year and still competitive. But it's not going to happen with Sirianni there, in my opinion. And the fact that a move hasn't been made yet makes me feel like they're going to continue to ride with it. But like, this is your opportunity right now to go after a really good head coach and like a Vrabel or something like that, that can kind of right the ship. Vrabel is a motivator. Guys like to play for him. He's tough nosed. Like,
yep.
And he's been
Dan
doing
Campbell
this
and
for
Mike
a long
Vrabel
time.
Are those two dudes that can get away with it as well. Because you can't have any motherfucker in the locker room doing that. Like, if you have Sirianni try that approach, somebody's going to stuff his ass in a locker.
Yeah.
But Vrabel and Dan Campbell can do that.
Yeah. And so, like, to me, like, that is the perfect fit is Vrabel going to Philly. And they need to act fast on it. Like, if they want that to happen, they should probably act fast. Bobbert Goblin asked him about it, that he's okay with them moving on from Sirianni, but he understands if they try to run it back and stuff like that. And I was like, you just got to call it what it is right now. Like, you struck a little bit of gold, and Sirianni happened to be there during that time frame over the past couple of years. But I don't think that Sirianni is the reason why any of this stuff happened. And if anything, it is now becoming a festering detriment to this team to have him there. So
you get rid of him. I think you got to trade AJ Brown too, probably. I don't know if there's a reconciliation that happens.
Well, this is my question: is if Vrabel does go there? I mean, Vrabel was very upset when they traded AJ Brown. I think their relationship was good.
Maybe that could repair it, but I don't think the problem was ever with the head coach or with the head coaching or the offensive coaching decisions. It was very pointed at Jalen Hurts. Like, if this motherfucker throws another pick, I'm out. Like, that is a very pointed statement.
Yeah. But I think that other pieces moving, AJ Brown could be swayed to stay there. Look, perfect Eagles offseason. I'm going to lay it out right here. You figure out how to keep AJ Brown there and keep him happy. That involves bringing in Mike Vrabel, who knows him. And Vrabel brings in an offensive coordinator that is going to help Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown re-click and refine that invigoration. Second, DeAndre Swift had a very good year for the Eagles. He started off the year good.
Him.
No, let him walk.
What? No, you got to re-sign him.
Bring in Derrick Henry.
Oh, God, no. No, that is not the offense that team wants to run.
I mean,
that is
Derrick Henry is a Vrabel guy. Vrabel likes him. Derrick Henry likes Vrabel. Derrick Henry and AJ Brown probably good buddies. They want to become a little bit more of a run team. That's before Jalen Hurts took off as a passer.
Explosive, and that is not explosive.
Before Jalen Hurts took off as a passer, that offense was predicated around what? Running the fucking ball. A lot of Hurts running and a lot of handing it off to different running backs.
Yeah, but that was because, and they got away from that because Hurts can throw the ball. I don't think they want to go back.
I think they need to get back to their roots. I think they need to get back to that a little bit in order to
that
find
far.
that.
Maybe
you're not going to run it with him every
2 yards
play.
A carry. Yeah, you're talking 2 yards a carry, man.
Yeah, but you're not going to run with Henry every play. You're not going to run every play. But I'm just saying, like, I think that to me makes a lot of sense as an option for him. Don't be surprised if it happens. And DeAndre Swift, I would love my Vikings to go pick him up. So just don't resign him.
Yeah, so that's exactly what's happening here.
I'm fine with it if we don't, but I like that narrative, that setup for the Eagles. I think that would be a fun setup for the Eagles, and that Eagles fans would get behind that. But we'll see. And even if you bring Henry in, you don't have to become that big of a running team. Like, Henry's going to get paid decent, but he's not going to get paid like one of the top backs in the league necessarily.
I think he's expecting to not get that kind of money.
Yeah, I think you can have
gone.
Henry in there as a good 1-2 punch. They like using a platoon backfield. Henry is definitely your strong.
If you could add Henry and keep Swift and give you a little thunder lightning, love that idea. That's a great idea, but not re-signing Swift is a bad idea.
I don't think you can sign both of them. That's the thing, is that Swift, I think, is a little bit better of an all-around back, whereas you would need more of like that third down receiving back to go along with the Derrick Henry. So if Austin Eckler wants to go there on a cheap contract too, there's your two options. That would be fucking ridiculous. But yeah, we're talking.
Do they have money to spend? I don't think they got money to spend.
Oh man, I don't know. I guess I can look this up here.
We'll worry about that in a couple of weeks when we got the off season.
All right.
I see you wanted it.
I got to see now.
Okay, but are we ready to? That's all the games from last week. A lot of clunkers. One good game. Hopefully, we'll see a couple more good games this week. Did you find it?
Yeah, they're gonna have about 28.5 million before they do anything.
Before they do anything, okay. So
yep.
They got plenty.
Like they could get rid of Darius Slay, who's 21.5 million.
He's gonna need a restructure, or they will cut him.
Yeah, things like that. So I mean, Jason Kelsey's contract's gonna come off the books. Not that he was getting paid a ton. He was taking a very team-friendly contract. But
I mean,
Jason's
a fucking good dude.
Yeah.
By the way, I will never. I'm not the take a team-friendly contract guy. I'm a team take as much money as you can from the large establishment as fast as you can. But sure. Are we ready to move on to this week's games?
Yeah, we're only an hour and 13 minutes into this, and yeah, we talked a little bit about ice baths and saunas beforehand and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm ready to get into it.
We got to give the people tips to be ready to consume this amount of sexiness.
Yeah, because I mean, we've got 2 hours until game time kicks off, so we do actually have to kick into this so people can start making their bets.
Hell yeah!
Because everyone knows they want to blow their fucking wad on bets this weekend. All mine basically didn't work out. I won one fucking bet last week.
Dude, my bets sucked dick last week. I put so much money out there last week. So with that, as we get ready to hop into our new week of bets, we'll show the week from before. Not great. Both of us 3-3. We went basically this exact same bets. The only difference was I took my Browns -2. So instead of losing by, 31, I lost by 33.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was
I expect you to be bullish on your Browns, so it's okay.
Yeah. But yeah, dude, 3-3, not great. Listen, our playoff record last year, also very middling. I'm pretty sure we went 50%. Yeah. Let's put together a good week here. Let's start talking the first game for the day, Texans-Ravens.
All right. Yeah. Super fun Texans-Ravens game here out in Baltimore. The Texans, who is, again, like that kind of darling team for a lot of people. I think a lot of people were attaching themselves to this team being like, oh, new head coach, new quarterback, like what they're doing out there, myself included. The spread is Baltimore -9.5, over under of 43.5. And I think there is a solid possibility that the Texans are able to get one here on the Ravens. And hear me out. So one, Mark Andrews practiced some this week, but he is not going to be playing.
He's not activated.
Marlon Humphreys not playing. They're one of their best defensive backs next to Kyle Hamilton. I know that you weren't a big Kyle Hamilton fan, but I'd say that he's probably top 3 safety in the league right now.
He's playing very, very well. There's no chance you can convince me that Kyle Hamilton is a better player than Sauce Gardner, though, which is who I was saying should have been the first defender selected that draft.
True. I'm more upset about that pick because the Vikings had Kyle Hamilton on the board. We traded back with the Lions and took Lewis Cine instead, who has been an absolute fucking bum. Nice guy, but like terrible on the football field. Part of it is that he snapped his leg in half. But we could have just not traded back and taken Kyle Hamilton and then have an easy replacement for Harrison Smith when he calls it quits.
Probably. I mean, I'd have appreciated that more than him being over in fucking Baltimore.
Yeah. So Baltimore Ravens, like I said, missing one of their biggest offensive weapons there in Mark Andrews, one of their biggest defensive weapons. They also basically haven't played in like 3 weeks.
3 fucking weeks.
So you have the bye week last week, and then The week before that, they rested their starters. You normally see a relatively decent slump from players when they have that much time off. You'll see it after a bye week. You absolutely see it when they don't play in the preseason. And now you've got the Ravens coming out who, yeah, they should be healthy and fresh and stuff like that. But also, like, how is their rhythm, their mojo, their vibe going to be when not playing that much? On the flip side, you have the Texans riding an emotional high, but they don't look like they are actually like kind of out of sorts about winning this game. They look like they are meant to be there. Like at the end of the game, it wasn't them freaking out like we won a fucking game, kind of like what happened in Detroit.
Like, right,
everyone
cool.
was freaking out. They're like, all right, we deserve this. This is right. We're going to keep fucking rolling. Now, Texans, they have Noah Brown on the IR. He is definitely a decent receiving component for them. That sucks. But I mean, it didn't seem to hurt them that bad last week. Not anything against the Browns there, but like they were able to spread the ball around to their tight end, Brevin Jordan, and who had a gigantic fucking touchdown against you guys. Nico Collins looks to be the real deal as like a number one.
Nico's a fucking legit one. I have no doubts in my mind. He is probably top 10 in receiver right now.
Mm-hmm. And
I asked you about that last week. Like, is Nico a legit one? After what, dude, Nico is a legit one, top 10 dude. Like, he is a guy.
He looked like a solid number 2 with bad quarterback play last year.
Yeah, with a good quarterback, he's a fucking one.
Yeah.
Like,
and then you come to scheming the game. The Texans had a beautiful scheme for that game last week, and I think they can probably figure out a way to do that again this week.
Yeah.
So right now, with the Ravens being favored -9.5, I'm taking Texans plus the points in this one. I think that the Texans can absolutely win outright, but I got to take the Texans plus. That's a huge spread there for a playoff game. And that Texans team, I like them a lot, man. I like what they're doing. I still think the Ravens could very well win this game, but I like the Texans plus the points, and I'm not against the idea of the Texans winning this one.
So I'm not goddamming it because you're picking them, because I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm taking the Texans plus the points, man. Like, that is a long layoff, and I'm not, listen, this is maybe a little bit of homer too. I'm not taking the Ravens. I hope the Ravens fucking lose. I don't want them to win a Super Bowl. I like CJ Stroud. I could not obviously root for CJ Stroud last week because, well, he's playing my fucking Browns. But now that we're out, I hope CJ Stroud kicks the shit out of the Ravens. They were able to run the ball against us. They were able to throw the ball in any which way they wanted. They'll see less man coverage this week. They'll still see some. But with Kyle Hamilton missing,
Hamilton's
defense. Playing. Oh, he is. He is.
It's Marlon Humphreys.
Humphreys, okay. Marlon Humphreys, a very good corner. But they play a lot more zone than we play. So if Nico can find the soft spots, he'll be able to eat because he's not going against the number one corner. Like, there are plenty of ways that this team can attack the Ravens. It will be if they can withstand the pass rush that the Ravens are going to bring, because the Ravens are going to bring zone blitzes all fucking game. That's what they're going to see. That's what they're going to face. Can they disguise it enough to confuse CJ? We'll see. But my money is on the fucking Texans plus 9.5. That's a lot of fucking points for a playoff game.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, the one that really matters, 49ers and Packers. Joe Rockstar, are you still there, buddy? Because, again, your fucking Niners need to do their goddamn job. Okay? 49ers are a very, very good team. Packers are a meh team with a overhyped quarterback right now. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. God. Completely overhyped.
Here we go.
I'm not taking San Francisco -10, though. I'm taking the 49ers to win this game, money line. I would also consider, based on how the Packers have been putting up points, looking at the over in this game. Right now, it's San Francisco -10, over under 50.5. It's a big number there.
It's supposed to rain like a motherfucker tonight, though, apparently.
Right now, AccuWeather has it 62, sunny with partially cloudy. But I don't know.
Ooh, I thought there was some rain forecasted for tonight because they're the night game.
Yeah, they start 6:15 here in Arizona, so probably around that time for them. It is raining currently Maybe. Nope. This is not the right one. Where's the hourly? No rain. Yeah, we're looking at 60% rain around 5 p.m. and that's 7 p.m. There's 75%. So yeah,
it's gonna rain. Yeah. It's gonna rain. And it's not gonna change my mind on who's gonna win this fucking game. I still got the 49ers money line. If it weren't gonna be shitty and rainy, I would probably drop the fucking points. But I expect them to win this game. They are the better team, and they're playing the Packers. I don't expect Jordan Love to all of a sudden be the next Messiah and overtake the things that Aaron Rodgers could do. So, yeah, 49ers, money line. This one's simple.
The 49ers have a good defense. And it's not like, oh, they're kind of good sometimes. They have a really good defense. Joe Rockstar says, we suck in the rain. It's the only concern, but it rains on both teams, and the Packers are traveling a lot. Sure. Atmospheric river over the coast that might hit San Francisco. Okay, we're getting the Tony Rogers weather forecast here.
Oh, hell yeah.
Atmospheric river, whatever the fuck that is.
Dude, I ain't had a Tony weather brief in a couple of years.
Right. Well, you're getting that from Joe Rockstar, right? But look, the 49ers have a good defense. You guys should be able to hold what the Packers do in check. Shanahan is fucking LaFleur's daddy, and it just needs to continue staying that way.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to change. 49ers, money line. You're not dropping the points, are you?
No.
Okay.
No, sir. All right. Sunday's games. Buccaneers and Lions out in Detroit. The line is Detroit -6, over under a 49.5. Buccaneers and Baker play well on the road. But at the end of the day, I do believe that they have outperformed what their expectation was. It was, they got into the playoffs because it was a terrible division. And then they played a team that was kind of just terrible in the Eagles last week. Like, again, no discredit to the Buccaneers because they won the game, but it felt more like the Eagles lost the game because of internal turmoil and stuff like that. On the flip side, you're facing a red hot Lions team that is nothing but fucking piss and vinegar right now.
Dude, they are
playing on their home field.
Up.
Yeah. Like they are a scary team to go against just from an emotional standpoint. They're going to be flying around and playing hard as fuck. Laporta even played in that game last week and wasn't terrible either. Like, it's just another week of getting healthy for him. That's like, this is a good Lions team. I'm taking the Lions money line. I'm not going to drop the points, but of the games this weekend, this one I feel like is the most likely to be a little bit closer, one of those blowout ones. The 49ers should absolutely blow the fucking Packers out by like 15 points. We'll see if it happens because it's a playoff game. But the Lions versus Buccaneers here, I could see a 10-point spread here. I wouldn't
Baker
fault anyone
indoors in
dropping
Detroit.
the points.
I feel like he could probably sling it a little bit. I mean, he was able to sling it last week. The Lions team is susceptible to being thrown on.
That's true.
They've shown it all year. I think that there's a chance that Baker keeps this thing close, but man, that Lions team is a buzzsaw right now, dude. Like, they are fucking hype, and I am right here with them. I'm going to ride the hype train. I got to go Lions. Not dropping the points. Lions money line for sure, though. If it were closer to 3.5 or 4 points, I'd probably drop the points. 6, I'm staying away from that.
Yep. Lions for me, money line. All right, and then our last game, Sunday evening, Chiefs and Bills. Perennially a pretty damn good matchup. But this is like one of the first times that they're playing out there in Orchard Park, New York. All right. So both teams.
First time in the playoffs. Pat Mahomes has never played away from home during the playoffs.
Yes. This is not just a big game for the Bills because it's a playoff game or because it's Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes. This is like, we've had excuses kind of for the Bills to an extent of every time the Bills end up going into Kansas City and having to play in that environment, and they've ended up not overcoming it. If there's any time for you to win, it's you're on a hot streak, your team is looking really good, and you are playing at home. If they don't win this game, like you're talking,
They have to blow it up a little bit.
It's gonna bring some big
reset.
questions for the Bills as to like, have they reached their max potential with what they have? The line is Buffalo -3, over under 45.5. I am taking Buffalo to win this game. I want to drop the points, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to take the money line here. Again, the Chiefs, bad passing offense. Smart move. Kadarius Toney benched again for this game.
Out. Not even activated.
Correct. Bills are looking great. They're on a roll. You're going to see probably the Chiefs try to utilize Pacheco again to an extent. But the passing game is, what we kind of expect from the Chiefs. Is like it's middling now at best with a good defense. The Bills, on the other hand, their offense seems to be clicking. Gabe Davis is out for this one, and Rasul Douglas, I believe, is out for this one. That one really hurts the Rasul Douglas part because he's been injected a lot of lifeblood in that defense since being traded there. But I like the Bills team. I like the way that they're rolling right now. Them playing at home will be a fucking fun environment for them. Hopefully Josh Allen doesn't crack under the pressure and throw too many turnovers. Have too many turnovers.
Honestly, I think Josh plays better when he's playing hero ball.
Yeah, to an extent. Look, when
he gets conservative and reserved is when he throws picks.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. There are times where he will force one because he's a little bit of a gunslinger. But when they pulled the reins back on him a little earlier in the season is when they had that slide. It's when that team could not get a ton of offense going. You need Josh Allen to play a little bit of hero ball. You need him to break the pocket. You need him to run. You need him to not fake slide, because that's not what the fuck he did, and take off for fucking 60 yards for a touchdown. That's the kind of Josh Allen that wins football games. He's the dude that takes over a game. He's that level of quarterback. Okay, so you cannot pull the reins back on a guy like that. Yes, there's going to be some mistakes. There's going to be some bad things every once in a while. But right now, I think Josh is finding a nice little harmony. You need Josh to play hero ball. That's the time where that team is the best. It's the time when the fucking Kansas City Chiefs are the best as well. It's when Pat Mahomes is playing hero ball, which he's going to have to do to win this game because they're playing in Buffalo. It's going to be cold as fuck. There's more snow. Fans are already shoveling that shit out for 2 days from now.
I did make a mistake here. It's not Rasul Douglas that's out. It's Taylor Rapp. Rasul Douglas is going to be playing, I believe, which is a good thing because Rasul, like I said, he's been very good for that defense and has kind of provided some uplift there at the safety position since being there.
Buffalo. It's got to be Buffalo.
Yeah.
Did you say you're dropping the points or you're just going?
I want to. I'm not going to. I'm for the safe play, I'm going to be doing the money line.
Yeah. Same for me, man. Buffalo.
Another note here. Dalvin Cook has been signed and activated for this game for the Ravens. So this will be the first time that we're seeing Dalvin Cook with them. We'll see if he actually has anything kind of left in the tank. We didn't really get to see that much with the Jets, but he was relegated to basically a backup role there anyways. And
Brees is a dude as well.
So I think that if there's a chance for success, it would be here with the Ravens. We'll be interested to kind of see how that works out for him. But that's it for our games. There's a couple other things as far as the NFL head coaching carousel that we haven't talked about. You have Antonio Pierce actually being named the head coach now.
The right call. Thank God that finally got done because he deserves it. He earned that job, like Bisaccia before him. But finally they get it fucking done. They do it right. I'm excited for that team going forward. That's another dude that's in that Dan Campbell mold. Not necessarily going to be your guy who's calling your schemes. And
I mean, we're seeing it with a lot of these former players, former players that were high motivation type of guys on their team coming in and becoming head coaches. D'Amico Ryans, Antonio Pierce, Dan Campbell, Kevin O'Connell. No, not the same. Not the same. But you're seeing a lot of these, more hard-nosed, defensive players or offensive players that are on the lines and things like that are making good names for themselves as head coaches and motivators and things like that. So that's pretty cool to see. Belichick has had a second interview now with the Falcons. That seems very likely it's going to happen. However, Harbaugh is
having a second interview as well.
Now these things, and I will give 100% credit here to Barstool. sports before anything else. They are reporting on a lot of these things way quicker than the other national media outlets because they have people right now dedicated to tracking the team planes for a bunch of these teams. Like they were reporting like, hey, there is a plane flying right now or the Falcons team plane right now is flying from, Atlanta to Boston to go talk to Belichick for the second interview.
Foxborough.
The first one was they were tracking the Falcons plane, fly from Atlanta, pick them up, and fly to Antigua to talk to Arthur Blank. So like they're tracking this shit. They're tracking the one with Harbaugh, I guess, when Harbaugh was doing his first interview with him. So they're doing some good reporting, good tracking of those planes. So it's interesting that they are like interviewing. Atlanta's doing a bang up job of interviewing like fucking everyone that's top tier candidate. So it seems like Belichick makes the most sense there right now, especially because that Cowboys job is gone. I know a lot of people were like, fire McCarthy, bring in Belichick. And it's like, well, I guess I could see that. But yeah, I think Belichick to the Falcons makes a lot of sense. Brought it up before. I think Kirk Cousins
is Saban done, you think? Do you think Saban has a chance to go anywhere?
At this point, I know we had that reckless speculation last week.
Yeah, does he want one more shot at the NFL before he calls it a career?
I think so. I don't think it happens this year now. Yeah. Like his name hasn't been floated at all. I think he's out on the college game just because of NIL and transfer portal. So I think
it's hard to keep up. Like he was like we talked about it last week. He's able to walk into any home in fucking any part of the country for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Say hi. I'm Nick Saban. Flop his fucking dick on the table and be like, in 3 years, you'll go to the draft. One of those years, you'll probably win a national title. Mm-hmm. Would you like to sign with Alabama?
Yeah.
And then, sure would. Let's go ahead and sign the paperwork. And now he's got commits. Now, with all the money, it's much, much harder. And it's very similar to the pros where he has not had the most success. I feel like he wants a shot. I don't know if it will be this year. But I don't think that we've seen Nick Saban coach for the very last time.
No. I kind of expect that this is one of two things. Either he is going to go become a color commentator for like a year or something like that, or he just takes a year off, relaxes, and then becomes a fucking coach in the NFL next year. Because look, this year it's unprecedented. We're seeing 25% of the league with head coach turnover. That's not going to... I'm not saying that it's going to happen again next year, but some of these hires are not going to be good. You have your David Teppers out there. You already have other coaches that were on the hot seat and somehow didn't get fired, and Eberflus and in Dennis Allen and McCarthy. So like, and potentially guys, like up there in New York with the Giants. Some might say the Jets if Aaron Rodgers decides to tear his other Achilles. Like, there's already a bunch of hot seats out there. So Saban can sit here and not have to compete with all these big fucking name guys like a Pete Carroll, a Harbaugh, a Belichick, and some of these young up and comers. Take a year off, fucking chill, regroup, figure out a good game plan for the NFL game because it is a little bit different than college, and then go attack it that way. That's kind of what I feel is going to happen.
All right.
Or he could just keep doing Affleck commercials,
I mean, those are good too. I like the fact they added Dion.
Mm. But so coaching carousel continues. We don't have anything new to report there other than Pierce has been named head coach, and there's a lot of interviews going on. So,
all right. Well, brother, I got nothing else. You got anything else for the people? Oh, actually, we got UFC tonight. Strickland versus Duplessis. I don't care who wins.
They already had their one fight in the stands, right?
Yeah, they already fought once in the stands. Sean Strickland doesn't like Duplessis because apparently Duplessis kisses his trainer, who may be gay. There's a whole storyline there. I don't fucking know what's going on with that. I just want to watch some human cockfighting and watch two dudes beat the shit out of each other. So I will probably tune into the UFC tonight. Any plans for you? Other than the football we got coming up here very shortly.
Yeah, I think it's just football in the gym for me today, buddy.
All right, brother. Well, guys, we're going to get the fuck out of here. I'm Mike. That's Evo. This is the Lineman Lounge. You can interact with the show on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I think that's all of them. I probably forgot one. But if you want to listen to the show, you can go to any podcast platform. We are there. If you want to watch these beautiful faces, feed you all this amazing knowledge, go to the YouTube.
You about to say bullshit? Feed you all this amazing knowledge.
Yeah, whatever, we like to have a good time on this show, and we hope that when you guys tune into us that you will have a good time as well. But if you want to interact, Facebook, Twitter, at Lineman Lounge. I think I got it all covered. Appreciate you guys. We will update brackets next round to see where everybody is at.
I do want to
got it already pulled up?
No, I want to give a big shout out here to one of our newest members of the Lineman Lounge Facebook page. Prime Source Communications, a lineman group that services Texas, Ohio, and a couple of those areas. Thanks for joining us. We know that you're here for the right reasons.
Hell yeah. Appreciate that. But guys, this is the Lineman Lounge. We'll be back next fucking week.